we're going to have some anatomy and a little bit of an anatomy lesson. So we're going to geek out just a little bit before we get started. And it's going to be one of those practices that aren't so, we're going to isolate some stuff. So always remember that when you're learning about something within your body where you kind of isolate a segment of yourself out, that really truly our yoga practice is to unify, to bring us into harmony together, to not necessarily segment sections of ourselves away, but rather bring ourselves together. So I say that as the caveat for today's practice, because we are going to pull some things apart. So try to remember that we don't move in isolation. No muscle moves in isolation. We move in functional movement patterns. And when you try to isolate out a muscle, it's very therapeutic to get like the nervous system to wake up, to help you be in presence in that muscle, but only for the result of letting that muscle join its harmonic group of functional movement in the body. So that's the thing with like PT exercises. When you isolate something out, it's to strengthen and to become lit up, aware, let your nervous system gain some control over movement patterns in your body. But it's really, we're not meant to move in isolation. We move in unity in our body. And that's really what our practice is about, is to try to unify. So this practice won't be like that. So I just want to put that caveat out there, that's what today's we're going to do. So I'm going to screen share my anatomy app with you all. So beware, we're looking at muscles. Can everybody see? Somebody give, Gail, I can see you really well. Can you give me a thumbs up if the anatomy app is up okay? Okay, good. So feel free to ask questions when I'm talking about this. I'll try not to spend too much time on it so we can practice. So there's 4 different muscles that we're going to focus on today, to learn a little bit of how to strengthen them. And the first, it's all in regard to how to stabilize your spine, really. This muscle right here, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. This is your psoas muscle. So I think most of you know this. Psoas is spelled P-S-O-A-S. So if you're looking it up and you're like, I don't know how to spell psoas, that's how to spell it. But this muscle attaches onto your vertebrae, all the way up to your thoracic T12, but also your lumbar spine. And then it travels down and it crosses over the pelvis and it crosses over the hip joint and attaches onto the femur bone right down in here. It joins up with this muscle right here on the inner rim of your hip bone called your iliacus, and the two form the iliopsoas. I usually just say psoas for short. But it's really a compilation of 2 muscles, and actually 3. I don't know if you can see this right here, but this is your psoas minor. So we're not going to focus on that today. It's not at present in everybody. Only about 50% of people have the psoas minor. So anyway, this muscle is a hip flexor. So it lifts your femur bone, it flexes your hip joint, and it also, its primary job is to stabilize the spine. So when we are moving, we need the psoas to be strong and supple, and it often gets unconscious in us. We learn how to use this muscle when we're about 6 months old, when we learn to sit up. And then because we have so much going on, we kind of relegate it to the back corner. And think of like the sound of your fridge in your house. You don't notice it because you live with it all the time. And the psoas is like that. We don't notice it very much because it's used all the time, that our brain just kind of like puts it over there on the corner. But bringing it back into the light can be a really therapeutic thing, because when it's tense or not strong or both, we can get some, wonky patterns in our pelvis where one side can be tight, one side can be loose, and that can set us up for some challenges in our movement. And notice also, this is your diaphragm up here, and the psoas attaches really closely to where this crura right here that attaches onto the vertebrae. That's part of the attachment of your diaphragm, as well as this band right here. And they attach really close to where the psoas attaches. So these 2 muscles communicate with each other a lot. And the psoas is one of our fight or flight muscles. So when we are in a stressed state, these muscles often tense because they flex us, they curl us in. It's the muscle of rolling us into a ball, which is our fight or flight react, or reaction of protection. And so we can get a lot of unconscious tension in our psoas muscle. So it's important to bring it to the light. And we're going to work with this muscle a little bit today. And then the other muscles that I want to show you, and we're going to work with a little bit, I know some of you know this already, so it's just a little review, but this is your multifidus group, your multifidi muscles, and it connects one vertebrae to the next. It's on the little sticky outy parts of your vertebrae out to the sides, your transverse processes, it connects one to the next. So it's very much involved in extension of the spine and rotation of the spine and lateral bending of the spine, and it stabilizes the spine. And if I shrink this down, it travels all the way up the whole channel of the spine, even though I'm kind of focusing on the low back. And this is not to be mistaken with the erector spinae, which are the bigger muscles that we see often on people's backs, those two ropes on the sides of the spine. Those are the erector spinae, and the multifidus is a much deeper muscle that's really spine to spine. Another deep muscle is this one right here, your Quadratus Lumborum. We've talked a lot about this deep low back muscle before. It attaches your ribs and your pelvis to each other, and it attaches onto the transverse processes as well of your vertebrae. So you can see this is a very deep muscle in the body. Also, you can see how close this muscle is to the psoas. There's just a little tiny gap between the two of them, and they relate very well to each other. I always say that they're like the two stakes holding up a baby tree, the baby tree being the spine. So when we're trying to stabilize ourselves in the spine, the Quadratus Lumborum and the psoas are the two main muscles, and the multifidus along the spine are the three muscles that really help to stabilize our spine. And the last muscle I'm going to work with is the transverse abdominis. So this muscle is our corset, and not also to be mistaken for other layers of abdominal muscles. You have a lot of abdominal muscles on top of it, your obliques, your internal and external obliques, and your rectus abdominis. This is the rectus abdominis, or your six-pack muscle. But really deeper than that is your transverse abdominis. And the thing to know about this muscle is the fibers go across the body, not up and down. And it attaches, oops, I'm losing my model. It attaches all the way around to the back. And you can't see the fascial connection to it right now because I've removed it from the app, but it attaches all the way to the back of the body. So it wraps our spine, it wraps our whole torso, it's on top of the organs, and it holds our organs in. And it allows, when we engage it, to have our organs hug up against our spine so that we can stabilize using our organs against our spine. It also has a relationship with the diaphragm. It attaches really close to all the places where the diaphragm attaches, and it also attaches onto the pubic the pelvic bones. So you want to have an understanding that this is a breathing muscle too, that when we breathe in, we need to release it. And when we breathe out, we want to engage it so that we work in concert with the diaphragm in our breathing patterns. When we use this muscle, this is when people say navel to spine, use your core. This is really the biggest muscle that you're working with to stabilize your spine. So it's our corset. If I talk about the TA, or transverse abdominis, this is it. Okay, so those are the four muscles that we're going to just kind of isolate a little bit in our practice today. Does anybody have any questions before I pull this off and stop my screen share?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When you were going through the different layers of this one, it looked like there was another one that looks identical to it that was like a layer or two
above it.
Officially?
That's your internal obliques.
Oh, okay.
These are your external obliques.
Okay.
These are your internal obliques. It's a little, I think that's not the best rendition of the internal obliques because it doesn't quite show that their fibers, see how the external obliques kind of point downward like a V?
Yeah.
Usually the internal obliques point slightly upward, and they kind of connect with in a fascial chain with other muscles, but that's your internal obliques.
Okay, and then my other question is, what is the difference between the reddish color and the whitish color?
The white is fascia or tendon or ligament, and the red is like muscle fiber itself. So you have a ton of fascia right across your belly, and this is a ligament right down the middle that everything kind of can connect to, because remember, there's no bones right here, from your sternum, the tip of your sternum to your pubic bone, you don't have any bones in your belly other than your spine. So there's a lot of fascia banding and ligamental banding that helps these muscles attach to something.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Going, going, going. Okay, got it. So I'm going to stop my screen share. So here we go. We get to practice now. So thank you for bearing with me if you're not an anatomy geek. And now we just spent, 10 minutes talking about anatomy. I apologize, but I think hopefully the visualization will help you be in your body just a little bit more. All right, so find a comfortable seat, sit up straight and tall, and close your eyes. And come into, forget about the mind, all the thinking that just happened about where's that muscle and what does that muscle do. Let's instead just talk about or feel into what you're experiencing right now. How is your breath? Can you sense the way your belly rises and falls with the movement of your breathing? What does it feel like to let the belly release a little bit on the inhale and recommit to a bit of engagement on the exhale? Is there a surrender through your shoulders, your face, your skull? Can you feel the grounding of your pelvis travel upward through your spine, become a little lighter? And then place your palms together at your heart and bow in, setting an intention, offering something for yourself, for your practice. And then release your hands. Hands come onto our back. Let's find our way into our practice. So as you come onto your back first, just get the sense of what it feels like to let your body have a different orientation to gravity. Notice your joints, see if you can spill them out onto the floor a little bit more. And come into a state of relaxation. Once again, find the connection to your breath. Stretch your arms up over your head and lengthen. Stretch your body, stretch one limb, stretch the other limb. Just come into any kind of sense of awakening, opening. And then bring your knees into your chest and rock a little bit. Just sway from side to side. Breathing well. And then circle the knees one direction. And circle the knees another direction. All right, and then pull the knees apart from each other and bring them back in and start to feel into the hip joints. And then right knee into the chest, left leg long on the floor. Roll around in your ankles, wiggle your toes, just get some movement here. Feel the elongation of the spine and feel the sense of squeezing that deep hip flexion. And then let's switch sides, left knee into the chest, right leg long on the floor. Keep moving your ankles around, stretch your calves. You can flex and point, whatever feels good. Feel the squeeze in your hip, extend the spine. All right, two knees into the chest, and then when you're ready, open things up, spread your limbs wide. Exhale, draw in to a little ball. Inhale, spread your legs wide, arms wide, spread out. Exhale, knees in, chest in. Let's try that one more time. Warming up a lot of different muscle groups very gently in the body. Exhale. Again, relax your head down onto the ground. Put your feet on the floor. And we're going to just wake up some of these muscles very gently. We're going to start with the psoas muscle. So first, just let the feet ground into the earth a little bit. Can you feel the femur bones settling into the hip joints, nestled in their pockets? Can you feel the elongation of your spine? And can you notice your breathing? So we're going to do this 2 different ways. We'll start easier and then we'll work harder. And if the harder is not good for your back, you can go back to the easier variation. So first, we're just going to lift our right knee toward our chest and then release and lower it back down. And we're going to lift the other knee, left knee, toward our chest and bring it back down. So try to isolate. Remember what you just saw on the anatomy. See if you can imagine, visualize that psoas muscle contracting so that your femur bone, where it attaches to, is going to draw up toward the center body. So it's a hip flexor. When you do one side, what's happening with the other side? Can you stabilize knee into hip, grounding into the earth with the leg that's not moving? And how is your breath? So can you also feel that there's an eccentric contraction? So concentric traction of the psoas is just drawing the flexion of the hip, so knee into the chest. But eccentric is when we slow down, we put the brakes on as we start to bring the foot toward the floor. So just waking up. Now to get a sense of this a little bit more, just in case you're not feeling the psoas, it's deep and quiet, so you may not. So we're going to put our feet back down onto the ground, lift your right knee up and put your hand right at the top of your knee, on your thigh, close to your knee. Push your hand into your knee and your knee into your hand. And this, not in isolation, but this is your psoas muscle working. So put your other hand where your psoas muscle is, in your low belly, really close to your hip bone. Can you feel some engagement in there on that right side? Pushing hand into knee, knee into hand. And then relax, stretch that leg straight for a moment, and then bend your knee. And let's try the same thing on the other side. Left hand on your left knee, and have an isometric contraction of the psoas muscle. So we're not moving, we're just putting equal pressure of leg and hand into each other. Take your right hand and place it on your belly and see if you can sense that psoas muscle engaging. It's deep in the body. And then relax and stretch 2 legs out, starfish yourself out, and then exhale and draw your body in. And this time we're going to put our head down, but keep our knees up. You can always go back to the first variation if this is too much. And we're going to slowly lower our foot, tapping your toe or your heel or your whole foot down to the earth and bringing it back up. And we're slowly switching sides. So we're going to drop left foot down and then lift left foot up. So the eccentric contraction of the psoas happens as we drop the foot toward the earth. The concentric contraction of the muscle happens when we bring the knee back to the earth. So, back toward our chest. So just going back and forth. There's more muscles at play here than just the psoas, but we're trying to feel into the psoas. Are you able to breathe? Try to do as much isolating in the psoas muscle as you can. Relax your shoulders. Try not to take the tension in your traps. Your traps will do like any job you ask of it, it seems like. All right, and then knees into your chest and rock a little bit from side to side. Open things up, spread out your limbs, stretch your legs, and then come back, feet on the floor. And now we're going to work into the relationship between the psoas and the transverse abdominis. They talk to each other as well. So remember, the corset muscle is the transverse abdominis. You guys have mostly all done this with me. Put a teacup on your left knee, root the knee into the floor, into the hip joint. Open up the right knee out to the side, keeping your teacup on your left knee from spilling, and then bring that right knee back up. Place the teacup on your right knee. It's a heavy teacup. Ground into the earth, into that right hip. Open the left leg out to the side. Don't spill your teacup on the right. And come back to center and keep switching sides. Notice if you're holding your breath. I'm not going to tell you where to breathe because we're having eccentric and concentric contractions. Just let the breath happen wherever it naturally happens. This is not the time to focus on the diaphragmatic movement with the TA. Just feel the tension that's happening, the stability that's happening in the low back and pelvis when you do this movement of butterflying one knee out and the teacup on your opposite knee. This starts to isolate some of the sensation in the psoas as well as in the lower fibers of the transverse abdominis, which are often our sleepy fibers. We have a lot of sensation up in the upper belly sometimes, but not maybe some control in our lower abdomen. So moving slowly, and then when you get to a place where you finish with your left knee coming out and back in, bring your knees to your chest and rock a little bit. And just notice what's fatigued, what is aware and awake in your belly. Do you have a light and lightness, a brightness in these deep abdominal muscles? And now we're going to put those actions together. So put your feet down, and instead of having a teacup balancing on one knee, we're going to open both knees simultaneously, and then we're going to bring both knees back as if you wanted to come toward hugging a block between your thighs, but we're not going to hug a block. We're just going to move. Your arms are relaxed, your neck is relaxed, your shoulders, everything in your upper body does not have to do the work here. So we're just opening the knees up and bringing them back together, or not together, but hip width apart. See what it feels like to breathe. Try not to hold your breath through this process. Can you feel the deep abdominal muscles doing the work for you? Your psoas muscles, your transverse abdominis muscles. So if you're trying to do the work of waking these muscles up, these are some great exercises that are pretty gentle and simple for the low back so that you can strengthen the muscles for your low back without overdoing. Bring your knees into your chest and rock a bit and then roll over onto your right side. So now we're going to do an isolation of the Quadratus Lumborum. So we've worked with the psoas, we've worked with the TA. Now we're going to find the QL, or Quadratus Lumborum. Bring your left hand, we're on our right side, bring your left hand over your head, stack your shoulders, stack your hips, your knees are bent and together. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, we're gonna pick up the feet and pick up the shoulders and the head, and on the inhale, we're gonna lower our feet and our head back down. So we're keeping the knees on the floor. This is a unilateral strengthener. Of course, the QL does not work in isolation. Our obliques are gonna come into play with this. We want to see if we can sense into that little square muscle in the low back that attaches the rib cage to the pelvis that is deep friends with the psoas. So sense into that muscle as you lift your feet and then drop them, as you lift your head and chest and drop them. Make sure you're exhaling on the way up and inhaling on the way down. We can start to train the breath pattern. I have no idea how many we're doing, but just let's try one more. See what it feels like to engage and then release. Roll onto your back and then roll over to your left side. And we're going to repeat this same thing on the other side. Knees are bent and together. Hand is on top of your head. And this just opens up the rib cage a little bit and gets you stacked. We're going to lift our feet on the exhale, lift your chest, lift your head up a little bit, and then release on the inhale down toward the floor. Take a breath, exhale on the way up, inhale on the way down. One of the cool things about doing one-sided things is that it really gives the nervous system an opportunity to focus. So can you feel into the Quadratus Lumborum on that right side? And as you're working, is it difficult for you to do the breath this way, or is it natural to you? Can you feel is this harder or easier on this side compared to the other side? Do you have more control, less control, more awareness, less awareness? All right, and then let's go ahead and relax. Come onto your back, bring your knees to your chest and rock a little bit. Just sense into your experience. Breathe. And then let's go ahead and find our way onto all fours. So as you start some cat-cows are so wonderful because you know it's very difficult to overdo. It's a very gentle process that has a lot of capacity to only move within the range that's comfortable and good for your body. So just notice all the vertebrae. Relax your head. All right, and then come on to all fours. And to loosen up some of the multifidi, those racetrack muscles that connect one vertebrae to the next on your back, as well as loosening up the psoas and the quadratus lumborum, we're going to put a paintbrush on our tailbone and do some big circles. Draw some circles on the wall behind you with your tailbone paintbrush and just get into some pelvic swirling. Okay, this is a great way to warm and loosen some of the muscles of the low back. It also can loosen up some ligaments and tendons and fascia. Remember, tendons connect muscles to bone, ligaments connect bone to bone, and fascia is everywhere. Okay, let's go the other direction if you haven't yet. Notice, I didn't tell you which way to go, so you have a habit, you have a pattern. So now that you're working in your non-habituated pattern of movement, how does your nervous system feel? How is the movement feel? Is it awkward? Is it comfortable? Is it similar to the other side or not? How's your breath? All right, and then go ahead and stretch back to child's pose. Take a moment off your hands, roll around your wrists, shake out your fingers, walk the hands forward, come into child's pose and feel the stretching of the lumbar spine. Walk the hands over to the left side of the mat and open the rib cage up. Let this be an opportunity for you to connect the diaphragm to some of these muscles that we're working with today. And then walk your hands over to the other side, stretching and lengthening. Relax your head. Take a deep breath. And then release and relax. Come up onto all fours. Move that spine around. Now we're going to find the multifidus, the racetrack muscles. This is such a great way of exploring them. So we're going to take our left leg straight back behind you and your right arm out in front of you. We do this pose all the time, bird dog pose. Feel the muscles along your spine, those racetracks along the spine engaged, and then balance that with the strength of your abdominal muscles. See what it feels like to have that balance. Take a deep breath in, exhale, and bring the knee and elbow. Can you feel the psoas engage? Push on your knee. So take your hand onto your knee, push against it, feel your psoas. Inhale, feel your QL and your multifidus as you lengthen that leg out. One more time, draw the knee in, push against the knee, and then inhale, bringing it on out. Place the hand down onto the ground, second side. Right leg straight back behind you, left arm out in front of you. And if your arm's not comfortable there, put it anywhere that it is. See if you can feel those muscles along your spine, both your quadratus lumborum and your multifidus. Find the work of your abdominal, your transverse abdominis supporting you from the front. When you're ready, let's start to move. Take a deep breath in and lengthen. Exhale, bring your elbow and knee underneath you. Put your hand on your knee, push against it, feel your psoas on this side. Inhale, bring it out. You can go slower than that if you're just exploring your psoas. One more time, drawing it in, hand on your knee, push against it, stabilize, and then reach your arm out, leg out. Place your hand down onto the ground. We got one more thing to do on your back before we get up. Come onto your back again. Two more things to explore. Take a deep breath, melt into the ground. We're going to find the multifidus here, so those muscles along our spine. Imagine that paintbrush on your tailbone, that it's now turned into like a dinosaur tail. And we want to lift our tail, lift your tail up toward your shoulders So we're actually arching the low back a little bit. There will be a pelvic tilt that happens here, and the multifidus are part of the equation. Can you feel it ripple up your spine? And then relax and neutralize your pelvis and let it rest on the floor. You can even curl your pelvis a little bit. And then a couple more times. So your pelvis is down, your sacrum is down on the floor. Scrub your sacrum, your tailbone up toward your shoulders, and feel the muscles along, especially in your low back, but you might be able to feel it all along through your thoracic spine too. And then relax. And let's do this one more time. Scrub your sacrum and your tailbone up toward your shoulders. Let the low back arch just a little bit on the floor. Feel those muscles and then relax. Okay, feel the sense of neutral. Bring your knees to your chest for a moment and rock. So there's lots of ways to strengthen these muscles that support your back without doing big movements. So if you are injured in your lumbar spine, these are some subtle things that you can do to help re-strengthen the stabilizing forces for your back. Put your feet back down onto the ground. And the last thing we'll do here on the floor is one more thing to help us feel the transverse abdominis in relation to breathing. Take a deep breath in, let the belly relax. Put your hands on your belly for a moment and see if you can sense that when you inhale, your organs have to move a little bit. It's not that we're pushing our belly out, but can you feel that there's a little bit of displacement, that our organs need to go somewhere when our diaphragm drops down to give more space to the lungs? So on the inhale, feel the organs release outward a bit. And on the exhale, feel that sense of drawing in. So this is the transverse abdominis' work. To release, to let the organs expand, to contract, to let the organs draw in. This can be very helpful for supporting our back when we use our breath to support our spine. So navel to spine, very simply, is that contraction toward the spine with the organs dropping down, belly button to the spine. But this is only one piece of the puzzle. A lot of times when we get trapped in pulling our belly button in, all we end up doing is contracting our diaphragm, and we lose the lower fibers of the transverse abdominis. So let's find those lower fibers since they're a little more elusive to us. So on the exhales, instead of just pulling your belly button to your spine, let's imagine the hip bones, those bony parts in the top of your hip bones, the ASIS. See if you can imagine them moving toward each other, toward the midline. You want to knit your pelvic bones, the top of your hip bones, toward the midline on your exhales. And then inhale, let the knitting spread out so the hip bones find a little bit of distance from each other. And on the exhale, they knit toward each other. And this will start to engage some of those lower fibers of the transverse abdominis. Remember, they go across the belly instead of vertical. So bringing our hip bones toward each other will contract those fibers. Loosen everything on the inhale. Let things go. Recommit on the exhale. And the last little piece of that puzzle is to bring the pubic bone toward the belly button on the exhale. So zip up a tight pair of jeans. So you got to kind of suck it in a little bit and zip up from pubic bone to navel. And then on the inhale, everything relaxes. So we want navel to spine, hip bones to the midline, pubic bone to navel. Now, you might feel your pelvis moving. You might feel yourself moving into an anterior and posterior tilt of the pelvis when you do this. Remember, we're exhaling on the engagement, inhaling to release. And this is very natural to do the pelvic movement. I'm not going to get into the pelvic floor today. There's a lot to that also coalesces with these four muscles, but I don't want to overload your brain. So if you find that movement, good for you. That's just naturally happening, that you're using the pelvic floor muscles in conjunction with the transverse abdominis. So every breath in, you're relaxed. Every breath out, hugging to the midline, pubic bone to belly button, navel to the spine. Are you awake in those lower fibers of the transverse abdominis instead of just pulling at your upper abdominal muscles and gripping your diaphragm? All right, so let's stretch out into a starfish and get off the floor. Okay, so bring your knees into your chest, roll over onto your side, and come up to dog pose. extending through your spine now, feeling the sense of space and length. Enjoy. So, we've been on the ground for almost all the practice, so let's just enjoy the big space. Feel the firmness below you, the spaciousness around you. Relax your head. Feel that quality of yielding, that you both are connected to the earth, are supported by the earth, but you're also expanding into space. Soften your skull, relax your eyes. Feel the sense of breath and width. And what kind of movement do you want to do? Do you want to drop one heel down to the floor and stretch your Achilles and your calf? Do you want to bounce? Do you want to bend the knee? What kind of movements get a gift to you right now? How is your breath? And then let's walk our feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Fold, rock around a little bit, sway your hips. Inhale for a halfway lift. The spine grows long. Exhale and melt to float back down. Push off your feet, rise up, lifting the arms to the sky, opening the breath. And then exhale and bring the hands to the heart and pause here for a moment. So can you feel the psoas muscle a little bit turned on? Can you feel the muscles along your back and your QL a little turned on? Can you feel the transverse abdominis? Can you feel these muscles alive instead of, what is your natural posture when you stand up? Do those muscles engage a bit or not? So see what you can do to now that they're awake, if there's a difference in your stance. Find the breath, take an inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale and float forward. Halfway lift, the spine is growing. Exhale and melt back down. Let's step the left foot back. The right foot is coming forward, coming into a lunge. Expand the heart, open up the chest. Let's start moving, straightening and bending the front knee, finding that space, finding that breath, finding the movement. Just enjoy being in the flow, in a bigger picture of the body instead of an isolation. All right, and then put your knee down onto the ground. Hug front heel and back knee toward each other. This will allow you to stretch the psoas up that back leg, but have a little contraction within that stretch so you're not yanking on attachments. Place your hand on your knee. Your left arm is lifting up in the air. Feel a stretch open. Find your breath and then cross that forearm to your knee. Other hand, your right hand is on your side, lifting your spine. Just feel the fibers of your psoas stretch. So it's equally as important to learn how to engage the muscle as it is to learn how to open and free it up. Breathing. And release and relax your hands back down onto the ground. And walk your back foot forward, fold in half, feel into what just happened in that left leg, halfway lift. And let's come down, come to the other side, left foot forward, right foot back. Finding a lunge here. Can you already feel the psoas on that back leg stretch open? Can you feel the psoas on your front leg engage? And then let's go ahead and stretch and release, bending and straightening your front knee. Move with breath, feel full body, get out of a single tree and into the forest. And then go ahead and find your lunge. Place the back knee down onto the ground. Hug your front heel and back knee toward each other so that you have a little contraction within the stretch. It's this is very healthy for your tendons and ligaments. And then rise up, reach the arm to the sky, feel the extension, maybe a little bit of lateral bending. See what feels good in your psoas. What kind of movement opens your fibers up? Because it's a little different for everybody. Cross your forearm to your knee. Your left hand is on your side to help you lift your spine. And then twist a little bit. Sometimes that can open the psoas a little bit more too. Hug into the midline, hug front heel and back knee toward each other. Find your breath. And then release your hands. Come down onto the ground. Go ahead and step back to a plank. Everything in your body works with this posture. When your transverse abdominis is alive and well, this pose becomes very stable. Hip bones to the midline, pubic bone to the navel, navel to the spine. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Okay, put your knees down onto the ground and come onto the floor. Let's notice how your transverse abdominis works with your QL in a back bend. So stabilize your core. Try to keep all those actions of the TA alive and lift up into Cobra Pose. So you can't go super high. And then exhale and release again. Let go of your belly muscles, soft abdomen. Lift one leg as high as you can go without any belly strength. And notice the overarching of your lumbar spine, the compression in the lumbar spine. Release that leg down onto the ground. Try it with the other leg. Can you feel when you don't have any core support, there's a lot of instability for the low back? And then release that leg down. Now let's find it with core. Back to the first leg. Lift pubic bone to navel. Navel to spine, hip bones toward each other. Find that core work. And then lift your leg in the air without losing your core. And notice what kind of space you have in your low back. A lot more muscles kick in to join the party. Your glutes, your hamstrings. Everything shares instead of just the burden being in your Quadratus Lumborum. And then relax, second side. Engage your core. Lift that leg in the air. Notice that your QL and your multifidus will turn on, but they don't get overburdened. The core is strong. How is your breath? Relax the legs. And now let's try to put that, shake around. You can shake your hips side to side. Let's try to put that all together in a Cobra Pose. So pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, hip bones to the midline. Stretch your legs, engage your glutes and your hamstrings, engage your multifidus and your QL. Everything's together, unified as you lift up and as you come back down. Come back up onto all fours, have a swish and sway, maybe draw another circle on the wall, whatever's going to free up your back. Curl your toes under and lift to dog pose. Spine is long, breath is deep. Walk your feet forward, come into Uttanasana. Inhale for a halfway lift. The spine gets long. Exhale and melt back down. If you need stability because of knees, stick a block between your thighs for chair pose. If you don't need a block, you don't have to use a block. You can have your feet together then. We're going to come into chair pose and see what it feels like to root the femur bones back into the hips. Can you feel this action come from the psoas muscle? Everybody stand up for a minute. Let's do this first, actually. So stand on your right leg, lift your left knee up, hand on knee, and press against it. Feel your psoas, your hip flexion muscle. Feel it engage. Feel the muscle, multifidus along your spine keep you upright instead of rounding. Then put that foot down onto the ground and let's try the second side. Stand on your left leg, do your yielding, soften into the earth, bring your hand on your knee. Okay. Push a little bit of effort, knee into hand, hand into knee. Feel the psoas on this side. Lengthen through the spine. And then release your foot down. So hopefully your hip flexors are nice and alive. Let's drop back down into chair pose again. Can you feel that that action isn't just, your belly's not just falling, okay? So see what it feels like to engage the corset around your torso, to feel the femur bones draw into the hips, feeling those psoas muscles engage, and then to add the low back and the quad and the multifidus to the action. Stretch your arms overhead and feel the action along your spine, the racetrack down your spine. Put it all together. Psoas, transverse abdominis, multifidus, and QL, Quadratus Lumborum. Hopefully you remember those muscles. I know it's a lot of information, so you don't have to worry about each names and all that, but can you feel the connection of front and back body, the rooting of your pelvis with your psoas? And then stand up straight, stretch everything out, exhale, and fold forward. Relax your head. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Bend your knees. One of the best things you can do to soften your low back is to bend your knees. Let's step the left foot back. Right foot comes forward. Come to a lunge, but this time we're going to come up. We're not going to stay down. Okay. Look, an actual standing pose. It's taken us a while to get here, but here we are. Find our way up. Now decide, do you want your arms out or up? If you can manage arms up, try it so that we get the sense of working with those muscles along our spine. See if you can stabilize with your transverse abdominis. Feel the pubic bone lift toward the belly button. Feel the corset around your torso. With your hip flexors, can you lift your knee? You can even put your hand on your knee, one hand on your knee, and try to lift up against it. You don't have to do that, but just sense into the psoas. Sense into the psoas of the back leg stretching. And then release and relax. Back foot comes forward, fold in half. Halfway lift. Melt again. Step your other foot back. Crescent lunge on this side. Left foot is forward, right foot is back. When you come up, can you feel the flexion of that front hip? Can you feel the extension of the back hip? Can you feel the support of your core muscles? When you lift your arms up, can you feel the support of those muscles in the back of your body? Breathing deeply. Try to let some of this stuff go and just notice what happens in your lumbar spine when you lose your belly, when you slag your psoases. Just see what happens. Do you lose some of that hug against your spine? And then release your hands back to a plank you go. Hold yourself steady here. Shoulders are away from the ears. Finding that deep 360 support around your torso. Breathing in. Recommit on the exhale. Okay, put your knees down. Find your way coming to the floor. Take any back bend of your choice. So you could have your arms off the floor. Can you feel the Quadratus Lumborum and the Multifidus do the work of the back body while supporting with your front? Deep breaths. And then relax and melt. Turn your head one way or another. Pick up your feet. Windshield wiper your knees, left and right. Come back onto all fours and then find your way to child's pose. Deep flexion in the hips. All right, and then relax. Let's go ahead and come up to stand and come near a piece of furniture and grab a block. It can be a wall or something to hold yourself on. I want you to have support for this. So we're going to stand, and you can have the block. You can stand on your right leg and hold something with the right hand. Our right foot is on the block, okay? And our left leg is hanging. I just want you to swing. So don't go so far, we're not trying to like kick our foot up and swing our leg. Just find a natural swing. And this is the psoas in its beauty, that it can just allow such ease of our hip joint to go. We do this all the time when we're walking, to go from flexion to extension. And see if you can just relax the psoas in its movement instead of having to grip and tense. Can you be aware of where the lever is for moving your leg forward? Where the lever is for moving your leg back. So feel that balance between the two tent poles on the baby tree. Your psoas in the front and your QL in the back. Can you feel that as you swing the leg? All right, and then we're going to switch sides. So I'm staying facing my computer so you can see me, but you can just turn around. Okay, so have your foot on the block now. Our left foot is going to go on the block and our right leg's going to do the swinging. And hold on to something with your left hand. So you want to have support on the same side as you are standing on the block, okay? And let the other leg swing. So what does it feel like to feel that balance between the movement of the psoas and the movement of the QL? And can you let that syncopated rhythm, they are in such deep relationship with each other unconsciously all the time when we walk. We don't think about this. We don't have to think about this. Thank God we don't have to think about this. It's like the refrigerator running in the background. We don't hear it. We just know how to do it. So bring it to the light and feel the ease of just that nice syncopated rhythm of swinging your leg front and back. All right, let's go ahead and come off of there. Last dog pose. Come onto your mat. Hands down. Extend the spine. Bend your knees as much as you want. Find the softness. Breathe deeply here. All right, and then come down onto your mat and come into child's pose. And you can bring your knees close or far. Just rest your body. All right, then we're going to come onto our back. Okay. A simple twist. So hips scoot to the right, knees drop up and go left, or lift up and go left. Deep breath in, deep breath away. So in case you're interested in that anatomy app, it's called 3D, the number 3, the letter D, and then the number 4, and then the word medical. 3D for medical. And then inhale, lift your knees up, put your feet back onto the ground, lift your hips, scooch them to the left, knees up, drop them right. Discover your breath. Relax your body. Breathe deeply. All right, let's go ahead and come back to center and let's stretch our legs. And you decide what's most comfortable for your body. Do you want to lie down on your back flat? Do you want to have some support underneath your knees with a bolster? Do you want to bend your knees? Sometimes it's nice to start with your knees bent, even if it's just feet on the floor, knees bent, to just let the back relax. Maybe you want to put your legs up on a couch. Maybe you need to do a little bit more. Maybe you need a happy baby or something else in your life. So just see what feels good to you as you prepare yourself for Shavasana. As we find our way into rest, eventually let your legs rest on something. So if they're bent, they're resting on blankets. If they're straight, they're resting on the floor. You can also rest them on a couch or a chair, but just let your legs rest. And as we slip into the deep stream of Shavasana, first, just take a moment again to feel the nature of the movement of the breath, the movement of the diaphragm in relationship to the movement of the psoas and transverse abdominis. Can you let your belly expand a bit and all the organs blossom outward on your in-breath? And on your out-breath, can you feel that sense of condensement, of falling a little bit toward the earth with your organs? Can you feel the pelvic bowl receive your organs as you breathe in? Is there ease in the movement of these muscles in relationship to your breath? Is there a fluidity? Or is it difficult? Do you have any gripping or tensing? As you practice being in the flow and rhythm of your breath, let your limbs start to melt. all four of them, arms and legs, softening to the earth. Let your head relax as well. Your pelvis relax as well. Feel the ease across your face and the gentle softness, the relaxation and awareness around these deep muscles in our body. Can you relax all of them? Keep staying in the breath. Let's begin to deepen our breathing again. Before you move, just explore again the feeling of this synchronicity of breathing and movement in the body. That when we breathe in, we allow there's space. And when we breathe out, we condense and surrender and drop. See what it feels like to awaken with some movement, getting a little bit more alive. You can stretch anything that feels good. All right, and then let's go ahead and Roll ourselves over onto our side. And use your arms to lift yourself upright. Breathe deeply. Come into that centered place. And offer your practice. Share your energy with another. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.